All right, let's talk about rounding whole numbers. Rounding is really important because it's a good idea to do some estimating whenever you're doing calculations. Do a quick estimation first. That's a little bit of a mental math calculation, just to give you an idea of where your answer should be. And then when you do the calculation, you can compare. If your answer is far off from your estimation, that might be an indicator that you need to go back and rethink the problem. Or maybe you made an error in the calculation. So estimation, rounding, those are tools that you can use throughout the quarter. And so I want to just go over a few problems on how we are going to round whole numbers. And just a side note, when we look at decimals, we will be revisiting rounding, focusing mainly on decimal numbers. Let's go ahead and begin. I'm going to give you some numbers, and with each number I'm going to kind of walk you through how you want to think about rounding, and then also I want to provide you a number line so you can visually see what's going on and why we're rounding the way we are. So in this first example, let's say we're going to round to the nearest tens place. So remember, with place value, the first digit is the ones place and the second digit is the tens place. And since this is a two-digit number, we can see that the 3 is in the tens place. Now, the next thing that we want to do is look to the digit directly behind that number that we just identified. So we're going to look to the 8. Okay, the 8 happens to be in the ones place. Now there's a little saying that I like to use in class, and it goes like this: 5 and above, give it a shove. 4 and below, keep it low. So I'm going to write that out for you because you might want to use that or use something similar to that to help you when it's time to round. So it goes like this: 5 and above, give it a shove. 4 and below, keep it low. Now, what that means, the 5 and above business, is that when you're looking to the digit next to the identified digit, if that number is 5 or more, or 5 and above, you're going to change this number. You're going to change it to one number higher, or one digit higher. So instead of 38, it's going to become 4 or 40. So the 3 becomes a 4, and then all the digits past that number that we changed will become zeros. So this 38 is going to be rounded to 40. Now if I were to draw a number line, just so you can visualize what's going on, when we're saying let's round to the nearest 10, and we've got 38, we're going to use 30 and 40. And we want to know, is 38 closer to 30 or 40? And if you think of this little saying here, 5 and above, give it a shove, if we find the halfway mark between 30 and 40, which would be 35, okay, what we could do is plot where 38 is on this number line. Okay, so I'm going to draw some tick marks. 7, 8, 9. Okay, so 38 is going to be here, 38, and you can see that 38 is only 2 spaces away from 40 versus being 8 spaces away from 30. So clearly 38 is closer to 40. And so when we round 38 to the nearest 10, it's going to be 40. Now, let's say our number was 33. You can see that 33 is less than 35. In fact, it's right here, right? And it's 33 is a lot closer to the 30 than it is to the 40. Okay, it's 3 spaces from 30 versus 7 spaces from 40. So 33 will be rounded to 30. Let's go ahead and round to the nearest hundreds place. Okay, let's say we have 548. 548. Remember, the first thing we want to do is identify the hundreds place. Now the hundreds place is hundreds place is the third place. So this is ones, this is tens, this is our hundreds place. And remember, before we looked at the digit to the right. So we're going to look next door. It's a 4. Okay, so this one is going to be like that last one we did with the 33. It's less than 5. Remember in our little saying, 5 and above, give it a shove, 4 and below, keep it low. So by keeping it low, what that basically means is we're going to keep the 5. We're not going to make that a bigger number. Okay, we're not changing it. So 548 can be rounded to 500. Now, oftentimes students will say, now wait a minute, how come the 8 doesn't change the 4 to a 5 and then the 5 to a 6? And so this number line is really going to help you see why that's not the case. Okay, so I'm going to put 500 here, 600 down here, and half of that is going to be 550. Okay, so half of, not half, but in between 500 and 600 is 550. Now, where is 548? Is it going to be on the left side or on the right side? Well, it's going to be on the left side, because you can see that 48 is less than 50. So, I'm going to do a little guesstimate. It's probably, it's probably really close to this number, but for the sake of this exercise, let's just say this is 548. Okay? And so even though, yes, it looks like, the 8 would convert that to or change that to a 5, and then the 5 would change that to a 6. What we're only doing is looking at that first digit to the right of the identified place value. And because it's a 4, we're not going to change that 5 to a 6. 548 is only 48 spaces from 500, where it's looks like it's 52 spaces from 600. So it's still closer, even though it looks like it might be the otherwise. Now let's say if we had the number 551. Okay, again, we're rounding to the nearest hundreds place. We look next door to the right. 5 definitely will move that to a 6, so this would become 600. And this number would be even closer, 551. Okay, this number, 51, is bigger than 51, so it's clearly going to be rounded to 600. Let's do 2 more problems. We're going to look at rounding to the nearest thousands place. Okay, now remember, thousands is a 4-digit number, and so we're going to have to identify that 4-digit number. Let's say we have 4,110. 4,110. So first, again, identify, well, that's over here, and then we look to the digit right next door. Okay, we're not going to concern ourselves with any of the other digits, just that one. Clearly, that is 4 and below. Okay, that's a 1. So we're going to keep that at 4,000. That's going to be closer to 4,000 than it will be versus 5,000. And if you want to see it visually, here's 4,000, here's 5,000. In between is going to be 4,500, and it looks like it's going to be around here. Okay, so this will be our number here. Very close to the 4,000. Let's do one more that might be a little tricky for you. And let me see if I have, I do have some room here. Okay, so let's say we're going to round to the nearest thousands, but I don't have a 4-digit number. Instead, I have a 3-digit number. Okay. Now, again, we want to identify the indicated place where we're going to be rounding, which is thousands place. So I'm still going to underline that because that's what I'm rounding. And so what you might want to do is put a 0 there, just kind of as a placeholder. And then again, like always, look to the right and then make your decision. Do you change this to a 1 or do you keep it as a 0? In this case, we're going to change it to a 1. So 875 rounds to 1,000. And again, if we want to put that on a number line, we've got a 0 to 1,000. And the middle is going to be 500. And you can see that 875 is probably around here, 875. And you can see it's very close to 1,000. In fact, I think it's 125 away from being 1,000 versus being 875 from a 0. Now, let's just do one more. What if we had something like that where we had 380, okay? And we're rounding to the nearest thousands place. Again, this is our thousands place. I'll put a 0 as a placeholder. I'm going to look over here. Well, that 3 is tells me that I will not change this to a 1. I'm going to keep it. And so instead of writing, 0380, I'm just going to say this is closer to 0 than it is 1,000. Okay? And so again, on the number line, 0, 1,000. Here's 500. Yeah, I'm just kind of estimating here where the numbers would be. Here's 380. That's clearly closer to the 0 than it is all the way over here to the 1,000. And so when we round to the nearest 1,000, we're going to have 0 thousands for this number. So like I said, we're going to revisit rounding again when we talk about decimals, and it's a really good skill, especially when you're estimating. And so if you have questions about rounding, please ask in class.